1, 2, 3, 4. You know, those two chords, B minor to D, that chord change didn't happen overnight. Ever tried learning a chord over and over and over again, but it just doesn't seem to stick? Well, that's a pretty common problem for starter guitarists, beginner guitarists. And in this short tutorial, I want to show you a few tips to help you overcome that stubborn problem and get your chords sounding great. The first thing that you can try doing is simply putting the chord on, holding, taking it off, leaving for a second, then putting back and repeating this process over again. Basically getting those fingers used to the positions on the fretboard. Like so, if we use the B minor chord, put the chord on, hold it for a second, take it off for a few seconds, then put it back on. Check that the strings ring out, hold it, take it off. And you can do this, so you can do it quickly, so you're going like this, or you can do it slowly, so giving yourself more time, depending on how confident or how comfortable you feel with that chord. And you know, this is a nice way to develop that muscle memory that really is needed to get your fingers really used to the positions they should be in when you're playing the chord. And you could do that with any chord. So D chord, on, play, hold, off. Wait a second and then repeat. On, play, off. And the other thing you're checking for while you're doing this is making sure that your strings are ringing out as well. You can then pinpoint which strings are not sounding so good. So if you put the chord on and you've got something like this, then obviously what you would need to do is adjust your finger. In this case, we're talking about the one on the D string, the third finger. You know, why is it not ringing out? Maybe you're not pressing hard enough, or maybe your finger is too far away from the fretboard. You know, you can kind of keep an eye on what's happening with your fingers. Tip 2, and this is one that my old guitar teacher taught me many moons ago, is very simply play a chord progression over and over again. So, or just play two chords. So for example, you could go from, if I stick with B minor, you could go from B minor to D, just over and over again. And so you would play four strums, 4 beats in the bar, and just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what you're doing is you're playing the offending chord with an easier chord. So if you find D easy, do it with that. So you're going from D to B minor, from easy to difficult. And this is pretty repetitive, but I think here, when you're learning the guitar, in fact probably with any instrument, repetition is really important to build, to get really used to the shapes of the chords and the frets that they're in. Now for me, my favourite way of learning chords and making them stick was by playing songs. And you know, I found that when I learned a new chord, I would go to my Beatles Bible and find a song with that chord and try and practice it. I remember the first song that I did this with was the Ballad of John and Yoko. Now the Ballad of John and Yoko has only got 3 chords. It's got E, A and B, but it actually uses E, E7 in part of the progression. And the problem I had a long time ago was with the E7, I play E7 with the little finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and I had a problem getting that little finger to do what it's told. And so playing along with a song was kind of helpful because it was just enjoyable, you know, and it helped me practice. The other chord that this song has, it doesn't actually have B, it has B7. And B7 is another one of those chords that uses, like E7, it uses all 4 fingers. It's this one here. And so it was, at first it was pretty tricky, going from E to B7. But then one thing I realized was when I changed from E to B7 is that this second finger became my anchor. I didn't need to take this off. And I learnt this from playing this song over and over again. And it's kind of like tip 2, where you're practicing just an easy chord and a difficult chord. The more you kind of practice, the more you'll find a way to make the change easier for you. So if I was just practicing E and then B7, I would eventually see that finger there is anchored onto the fretboard. So playing along with songs I think is super enjoyable. I think is one that everybody should try doing. So when you learn a new chord, go and find your favourite songs and see which song has that new chord and start playing. Doesn't matter if there are other chords maybe you don't know, just play that section of the song. Now another tip that might sound a little woo for some people is visualization. Now, if you don't have your guitar with you, how are you going to practice? Well, one of the things that I used to do is to see the chord in my mind, and as I close my eyes, try and imagine that I was holding the guitar and I was playing the chord and trying to get the shape of the chord with my fingers. And I think this is a pretty good looking B minor chord right here. And this is a pretty good B7. And I think this also just helped me when I would come back to the guitar. I did feel that there was a little slight change, a slight improvement. And I think that visualizing the chord changes can really help. And something else you could also try is, again, if you don't have a guitar, try writing out the chords over and over again. Draw the fretboard and the position of the fingers in a chord diagram. One that you see right here, for example. Now, I've talked about muscle memory many times before in some of my guitar tutorials, and I do believe it's something that you can build up, and it's really done through repetition. So with all these 3 tips, even the woo-woo one, it's very repetitive. They're very repetitive tips. You know, putting the fingers on, taking them off, putting them on, or practicing a chord progression over and over again with just 2 chords, practicing the difficult chords going round and round. It is repetitive, but it's probably one of the most useful things you can do when you're starting out on your guitar journey. And one other thing I would say is be patient. This takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You've got to keep at it. Remember, keep on keeping on. And if you do this, in a few months' time, you'll look back and wonder what all the fuss was about. If you need more practice working on chords, then check out this playlist here and get practicing. Thanks so much for joining me today. Happy strumming.